How many moles of atoms does 245,2 grams of zinc contain? What is a mole? A mole is an amount of substance which contains this many particles. This number, 6,02 times 10 to the power 23, is called Avogadro's number. And if you have that number of particles, you have a mole of those particles. What do we mean by particles? We can choose any unit to count as one, and that unit will be the particle we're referring to here. We might choose an atom as our unit, as our particle. Then a mole of atoms would be this quantity of atoms. What does the word molar mass mean, and how can we find it? Molar mass means the mass in grams of 1 mole of that substance. If we look on the periodic table, we find that each element has a few numbers associated with it. Zinc has the number 30, the number 1,6, and 65 in the block of zinc in the periodic table. 30 refers to the atomic number of zinc, 1,6 to its electronegativity, and 65 can either mean the atomic mass or the molar mass of zinc. If we take it to mean the molar mass, its unit is grams per mole, and it means the mass in grams of 1 mole of zinc. 1 mole of zinc will have a mass of 65 grams. To help us to solve problems, we can use a method called the unit factor method. This relies on the fact that anything can be multiplied by 1. 3 multiplied by 1 is still equal to 3. Now that might seem very unuseful to you, but if we also realize that 2 equivalent values divided by one another equal 1, then this method becomes useful. Now obviously something like 3 divided by 3 equals 1. 3 is equivalent to 3, and so dividing the 2 equivalent values, 3 and 3, by one another gives you 1. Again, this probably seems silly, but if we take something like 1 kilogram being equivalent to 1,000 grams, then this method starts to get useful. 1 kilogram is the same thing as 1,000 grams. The two are equivalent to one another. So dividing 1 kilogram by the other, 1,000 grams, also gives you 1. What is the question we are trying to answer? How many moles of atoms does 245,2 grams zinc contain? What do we already know? From the periodic table, we know the molar mass of zinc, which is equal to 65 grams per mole. This tells us that if we have a mole of zinc, then its mass will be 65 grams. However, we do not have 65 grams. We have 245,2 grams of zinc. Therefore, we do not have 1 mole. How many moles do we have? That's what we need to find out. We can write our question in a mathematical form. How many moles of atoms can be written as question mark mole atoms of zinc equals does can be equated to equals does 245,2 grams of zinc contain. So here we've written this question in an equation form. Now we can solve this by in effect multiplying this by 1. You can multiply anything by 1, it is allowed. But that doesn't help us anything. That's not going to help us solve the problem. But if we realize that we can replace the 1 in this equation I've written by an equivalent, two equivalent values divided by one another, then we can start to make progress. So if we can multiply 245,2 grams zinc by something which has a numerator and denominator which are equivalent to one another, then in effect we will be multiplying by 1 which is legal. Now this is only going to be useful if the bottom of the fraction has a unit, grams zinc, that will cancel out the unit of the given information, gram zinc. And if the top of the fraction has a unit, mole atoms of zinc, that will introduce the unit required by the question. So what we need to determine now is, well, how many moles of atoms of zinc is equivalent to how many grams of zinc? Can you answer this question? How many moles of zinc atoms is equivalent to how many grams of zinc? Well, we remember from the periodic table that 1 mole zinc atoms has a mass of 65 grams of zinc. And so we can solve our problem. And the answer is 3,8 moles zinc atoms.